On today's show, a bit of a bonus podcast. We talk about the conference finals, some Hawks impact as well, but the East, the West, a pair of 3-0 series, and Robby Kalland is here to join me on today's show. We'll get into all that and more right now.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1724 of Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Sunday evening. In fact, it's almost Memorial Day, and I'm joined on today's podcast by my friend Robby Kalland of UPROXX and DIME. Hello, sir. How are you?
Doing well. About to get some time off here between the conference finals and the finals. We're gonna have a little break. It looks
like. It does seem that way. I should tell everybody at the top of the podcast to make sure first listening to every day. Check us out. Subscribe to the podcast. Apple, Spotify, Overcast, YouTube, etc. This is kind of a bonus podcast. It's not going to be a lot of Hawks talk. Really, no Hawks talk, I would guess, on this episode. We're going to do a little pivot. It's conference finals. Also, it's Memorial Day, it's a bonus podcast. I'm not technically required to do a show on Memorial Day. So, anyway, that's the preface. So, if you don't want to listen to general NBA talk, I won't be offended. Thanks for listening to the podcast. But I hope you stick around because Robby and I have fun talking basketball. And I'm sure we'll find something that's applicable to the Hawks at some point. I have a knack for doing that when talking about NBA basketball. But we're recording after Game 3 of the Western Conference Finals.
Yep.
And as Robby just alluded to, a pair of 3-0 series. Has that happened in recent memory? I should look this up. I haven't. You don't often see both series 3-0. That's tough.
Well, actually, last year both went up 3-0. Boston just rattled off 3 wins in a row.
Oh, that's right, because they were.
So it's literally
it was different because it felt like Boston was alive.
Yeah,
because they were the better team.
Yeah,
I know they lost, but they
so
were supposed to be the better team.
I'd be willing to bet we haven't had back-to-back years with 2 3-0-3-0s.
I mean, we'll get into both of them, but it really never felt like Boston was out of it to me last year. They almost pulled it off.
They almost did it, yeah.
And it's never, just in case people don't know this, in the NBA, it's never happened. The 3-0 comeback has never happened. It's happened in baseball. It's happened in hockey. It's never happened in basketball. So it will happen at some point. Maybe you could argue that respect to Indiana, I won't argue that. Maybe you could argue if Minnesota finds it, they could pull this off. But I mean, what have you made of this? I guess we'll start in the West because it's the more competitive one, even though it's 3-0. It's been much more competitive. All the games have been fairly close. It doesn't feel like a 3-0 series, but it's 3-0 series after tonight because it's another game where it was like tight late and Dallas just made enough plays.
To me, it feels a lot like last year's Western Conference playoffs or Western Conference Finals. I mean, it comes down so much to the fact that Dallas late in these games knows exactly what they're going to do offensively. And they are able to execute at a level that Minnesota hasn't been able to. Now, sometimes that is Kyrie make a crazy shot, Luka make a crazy shot, but that's kind of a viable offense with those two. But the thing is like they're able to bail them out of bad possessions. But they also are getting a lot of good looks out of their normal offense. We saw the Gafford lob. PJ Washington got a wide open corner 3 that was huge to take the lead when it was tied at 104. We see the Luka, step back, whatever. We see the Kyrie runners. We see, all of the incredible shot making, but it's kind of interspersed between crisp offense that is not completely bogged down. Like sometimes they'll run it to late in the clock and need a 9-1-1, but they also have 2 of the best guys in the league at doing that. Minnesota, on the other hand, they're just not, when they do create a good look, they're not hitting enough of them late in games. And too often they are ending up kind of in jail at the end of the clock and cannot make it happen, especially with how well Dallas is doing at taking the ball out of Anthony Edwards' hands. He was more assertive tonight, but I think he only had a couple shots in the fourth quarter. I think he took 24 in the game and he had 22 through 3. Like it was again, just another night in the fourth quarter where they were just going to send help and say, I dare anybody else on this Wolves team to beat us. And Karl Anthony Towns has been awful.
Yep.
And it's just like that. You're asking a lot of like Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid and like Rudy Gobert to do stuff offensively when that's not supposed to be what they're supposed to do. And so for me, it's kind of reminiscent of what we saw last year, where one team is able to do that. And if for the Lakers last year, it was LeBron and AD in kind of the same spot Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns are in, where like they're pushing the ball out of Edwards' hands. Last year it was LeBron's hands, and asking anybody else to create, anybody else to hit a shot, and nobody else can do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not this simple, but it kind of is. I think our guy Bill pulled this in the Dime Slack about Edwards and Towns combining to shoot 33% from the field.
Yep.
And it's like there's no path for them to win this. They could win a game or two like that, but you can't win a series like that. And look, it's actually a credit to Minnesota that it's as close as it's been with those guys doing that. That means they're really, defensively, they're really good. For all the Rudy jokes that's gotten silly there, Ruse is still a great defensive player, McDaniels, and all that stuff. But I mean, and look, I think the Ant conversation, we don't have to have it. It's kind of gotten fairly aggressive at times.
Let's have a little bit of it.
We can do it, but like he's making the right play a lot. He's still he's averaging eight assists a game in this series. Like he's making the right play, but you're like they're loading to him, and they're not making him pay. And I mean, I think the Karl Anthony Towns discourse gets a little bit frustrating too, but I mean, the man is shooting on average in the series 5 of 18 from the floor. That's his average line. And like that can't happen. I mean, defensively, he's gotten so much better in the supporting role where he's not having to be the primary anchor all the time like he used to be in Minnesota. And he's functioned there. He's not bad anymore defensively, all that stuff. But like, he's not making shots. I love Mike Conley. But like, they need another guy that can create some offense. If Towns can't do it, and it's not to the point where he could just do it by himself. He's not that guy yet. He might be that guy in a couple of years or whatever, but if you're going to load to him, he's not going to make every pass in the book like someone like Luka does. Like he can make the right reads, but if Ant's not – I mean, the third quarter tonight's a great example. You brought it up. Like he was aggressive for 4 minutes. He had the ridiculous dunk.
Yeah, they closed. It was like 5 minutes to close, 5 or 6 minutes to close. He had the big dunk. He had like the reverse lay. He had a couple of fadeaways in the mid range.
But even those shots, like I think I said it to you offline, the big dunk happened. But then I think the next 3 or 4 shots he took were all like shots that Dallas is okay with, like contested 18-footers. And like he can make that shot. I'm not saying he can't because I think he made 2 of them.
He did.
But Minnesota's offense has always been the question mark with him.
For sure.
And I think the numbers look okay in the series, even with all that. But I don't trust their offense. I think we've kind of seen why in big moments in the series. Today's show is brought to you by eBay Motors, and passion, drive, and patience are the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you're looking forward to. Maintain your vehicle, also level up to peak performance. They have superchargers, they have roof racks, they have exhaust kits, they have LED headlights, and much more. Whether you're into speed, into power, or into style, eBay Motors has you covered across the board. They have over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find what you need and exactly what you're looking for with the folks at eBay Motors. So with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your parts guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money's coming back to you with eBay Motors. Because you're really not burning any kind of cash. Instead, you're just burning rubber. With all the parts that you need at the price that you're looking for, it's easy to turn that car that you have into the MVP that you're looking for and bring home that win that you are seeking. Keep your ride or die alive right now at ebaymotors.com. One more time, the place to go is ebaymotors.com. eBay guarantees fits a little bit with U.S. customers. Eligible items only, exclusions apply.
Yeah, and they got away with it in that Denver series, but the last 5 games of that series, they were pretty much in the mud there too.
That whole series was in the mud.
And
completely.
So it's interesting, and it's just this Dallas team. Credit to them for going in and figuring out what their vision needed to be, because they were kind of lost in the sauce for a little while there with how do you build around Luka. Right? Like that is the question. And if we want to take this to tie it into the Hawks in some way, I think if you are the Hawks and you're watching these conference finals, and I'm not even trying to be funny about any of this. Like if you're the Hawks and you're watching these conference finals, you're watching Minnesota and you're watching Dallas, or you even watch like that OKC series, and you're saying like, what do we need to do to get there? The answer is you got to pick. You got to pick your direction. and create a plan, craft a plan, and craft a vision about how to build around whatever guys you choose to build around. The thing you can't do is this kind of in-between stuff where, you kind of try to float on both sides and kind of acquire guys that don't fit real well. Like, I think the thing that we've seen and how these teams are building, we saw it with Boston. Like, Boston was like, we're going to go out and get Kristaps Porzingis. We're going to get rid of Marcus Smart. We're going to get a guy who fits what we need more. And if you are Atlanta, if you are a Hawks fan, the thing that you want to come out of this summer is we are crafting that vision. We are starting that vision. Here is who we are building around. This is what we are saying our core is. And that, I think, is just the base of what you want, because everything else has to start from there. If you don't start from there, you do not have a chance.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's funny. I know you're not listening to this podcast all the time, but it's been a common theme the last month. My guy Glenn Lewis has preached this. Like, the Hawks have not had a plan, like a real coherent plan for
top to bottom
several years now.
Last time was when Bud was here. I mean, like genuinely, it was. I remember when didn't go great exactly for him, but I remember when Danny Ferry came in, and the whole thing was, we are going to have one voice, top to bottom, organizationally, and we are going to have one vision, and it is going to be cohesive. And that was the best run that the Hawks made.
It worked.
And it was because they had the vision. Now, did they have the guys? Not necessarily. They did not have the top level guys to compete at a championship level.
And by the way, you need both.
You need both. You do need both.
You gotta have
obviously.
Both.
However, if you want to have a shot at that second, third round of the playoffs, you can get there. Look at Indiana. If you have the vision, and now some luck involved, and the Hawks have seen that play their way before. Yeah. But Indiana went out and said, what do we need next to Tyrese Halliburton? Well, we have to have a second guy, and we have to have a second high-level guy who can create. And they went out and got Pascal Siakam. And it gave them a chance. It gave them a chance. Now, again, they needed some things to break the right way. They need some teams to break the right way. But, I mean,
that's true.
That's the thing, is you have – and Dallas did that this year at the trade deadline. And said, what do we need? Derek Lively's nice. We need more.
They added depth, and
we need wing. Grant Williams isn't working.
Dallas is a great example of they have two stars. Mm-hmm. They have one of them as a top 5 player in the league, and the other guy is a fantastic number 2. I mean, since Kyrie decided to just buy in and be normal, he's a fantastic number 2. He always has been. Right.
Always has been.
That's his,
he was
that's
always
his
at
role.
his best. Always at his best as a fantastic.
It's his best role. And then every once in a while, when Luka sits, it happened tonight. So I think was it early 4th or late 3rd? Luka had his one rest in the 4th. Yeah, in the second half. And it was just the Kyrie show for about 6 straight trips. And that was on purpose. It's basically he's playing with Josh Green, PJ Watt. I mean, it was literally a lineup where it's has to be Kyrie, and Kyrie's capable of doing that for 6 possessions.
The bursts, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, not to go down this road again, but the one time the Hawks were playing at this level in the last 5 years, they kind of caught lightning in a bottle. But as my friend Tyler Jones always says on this podcast and other places, they didn't realize why they were good.
Yes.
They didn't actually figure out, and it was because they actually had a coherent vision for what it was, but then they started breaking it up and changing things as soon as that happened. So
start chasing shiny objects.
Yes. Okay. We'll get to the East in a second. Is there
more to talk about in the West?
Right. Is there, because look, I think that Minnesota, if you told me right now that you think Minnesota is better than Dallas, I wouldn't laugh at you, even though they're down 3-0. I think they're not right now, because obviously they're down 3-0. But we just talked about it. If Towns, a thumbs up. That's actually funny. If Towns has a good game, or if Ant goes nuclear for a half or whatever, or if Conley, you know what I mean. Minnesota is capable of winning Game 4 in Dallas,
for sure.
If that happens, as the higher seeded team, they have Game 5 and Game 7 at home. It's not probably going to happen, but I can at least entertain the reality of this gets to Game 6, and if it gets to Game 6, all bets are off. Sure. It becomes a series again. You know what I mean? So is there stuff that Minnesota can do? Is it just the play better, the infamous John Hollinger play better adjustment for Minnesota? Because I feel like offensively they can. I don't know. Defensively, they're doing their job. I think Minnesota's playing fine defensively. Sometimes Luka's going to beat you. Sometimes Kyrie's going to beat you. But we joked offline tonight. When the supporting guys for Dallas are not making all the threes, you can slow them down. You can't stop them. But if Washington's not making every corner three like he was for a while,
Derrick Jones Jr.
and the live injury, we don't know about the lively injury. He left the game tonight. If he can't go in game 4, next sprain is the official. I think we saw in that, even though they won the game, that is a big loss. Dwight Powell, I like a lot. Dwight Powell is not Derek Lively.
He's not a guy you want on the floor a lot in the Western Conference Finals.
Well, and Stan Van Gundy was saying this a lot on the broadcast tonight, but you can also see it's easier to guard Dallas because you can start blitzing more because Gafford and Powell can't make the short roll reads that Lively was making, which means and look, Luka's. I think Duggan says this all the time. Luka's maybe like the best 2 on the ball beater ever because he's so tall. He can just pass the ball over the top of you. But you have to have someone to pass the ball to. Like they don't want to pass the ball to Daniel Gafford at 18 feet and make a decision. They don't want to have to do that. So Lively is a big wrinkle here. But I mean, let's just be serious. Are you entertaining Minnesota winning the series still? Or is it just like on to the finals?
I mean, not really.
It's fine. It's 3-0. It's never happened.
Not really. That said, I do think they could make things interesting. Like you said, could they get this back to a game 6? They could get it back to a game 6.
Well, game 4 is the hard one too. I should have said this before, but it's the emotional game. It's like, okay, the response.
Do you have it in you?
Do you roll? Yeah. Do you roll over when it's 3-0? Everyone understands you're probably done. But do you actually understand that you're not done?
So here's what I'm interested to see. Because they had that game once before in game 6 in the previous series. They lost 3 in a row.
Yep.
And they came out and Anthony Edwards was on it from the jump. However, that's a series where they had already won 2 games in Denver. They had already proven they can win against the Nuggets. They had already proven that they can, compete. And even though the last 3 games had gone poorly for them, there was something to fall back on. There was something to fall back on to create that belief that we could maybe do this.
They also punched them in the mouth too, like you said.
Yes.
From the jump in that game.
Immediately.
And
can you do that in a series where you haven't won a game?
On the road.
Can you do it
as well
on the road where you have to say, we're going to come out and we're going to take this game in the first quarter and we're not going to let it go? Because I think that's the way they have to go. Because, again, there's a lot of scar tissue there, I think, in the fourth quarter right now. I think they are in a close game. It's not been going well. And so
they could have won these games. That's the thing. I don't want to but they were right there. Tonight it got a little bit loose at the end. They lost by 9. That wasn't indicative of how close the game was. Yeah. I mean, it was a one possession. Minnesota led multiple times in the fourth quarter. It was another close game. And I don't know about you, it got a little bit. I don't want to. Did they get rattled late? It felt like they did a little bit at the very end.
It came seemed to me that I think it was they were down 3 or 4 and Towns missed a 3 badly. Barely front rim.
I can see
from
the shot right now. Yep.
From the wing. Barely caught a little front rim. It jumped. I think it hit PJ Washington in the chest underneath.
Oh man, they had 3.
You could see the bench. You could see heads drop on the floor.
I have a stat for you. By the way,
at that moment, it was 0 for 8 for 3.
They scored 7 points in the last 7.5 minutes of the game. They were up 198 with 7.5 minutes to go. And they scored 7 points the rest of the way.
I think
3 points in the last 4.5 minutes, by the way. That's even worse.
And I mean, for me, it was this realization that we can't rely on one of our guys. That's what it felt like. By the way, they benched him in game 2, which I know you remember. They benched him down the stretch in game 2. They almost did in this one. I don't know if you remember. They put Gobert in right before the 3-minute mark. They put Gobert in. and took Towns out, and they had Gobert and Nas out there. And then when they came out of the second use it or lose it, it was Towns in for Nas Reed.
Yeah,
and then Carl missed 2 straight.
Because they kept putting Anderson in the game, which they don't often do there, but he was playing really well.
He's your best Luka defender.
And he also got enough. I mean, offensively, he's a bit of a mess on that. But he made a couple of those.
He made a couple of those. He made that floaters. He made the grenade shot, which I didn't even think he could get one off in
from
time.
like 18 feet or something.
He's like foot on the line, like runner. It was incredible. But the thing is like the biggest issue they don't have anybody that like. They really don't have good matchups for Luka and Kyrie in the same way that like Jaden McDaniels could just put Jamal Murray in hell. Jaden McDaniels cannot guard Luka Doncic. He is too small. He is not.
I actually think that McDaniels. I agree with you 100%. I think McDaniels. This might be an overreaction. McDaniels on Kyrie is way better for McDaniels.
Yes,
but they don't have. It's hard to play McDaniels and Anderson.
Because Conley can't guard Kyrie. We saw that. It was very funny. There was one, one point where McDaniels came out and literally they come down the floor and Reggie goes, let's see if Mike Conley can guard Kyrie. And Kyrie immediately blew by him, stopped, pulled up, got fouled in the back and hit an and one. Reggie just goes, nope.
Well, it's true, just like, and look, I'm really high on Mike, but like defensively, I think the one alignment they had, I mean, it's basically, do you want to have Ant try to guard Luka all the time? Like that's a pretty hard ask for Ant to have to do. But McDaniels, number one, he had 5. He was in talk all night tonight.
I don't even know if Ant's a good.
Well, I'm not saying he can do. I'm just saying like that's your other option because you can't. Yeah. Realistically, you can't play McDaniels and Anderson because offensively, there's no way to do that.
There's just nothing there.
There's matchup problems everywhere, and that's the reality. Well, that's the problem with Luka being 260. Yeah. Makes life hard. I mean, that's one of the reasons why he's so good. He can just body anybody in front of him.
Yeah.
And Anderson can guard him, but then you're playing Kyle Anderson, and I like Kyle Anderson, but he can't space the floor. I don't want to say too much about Jamal Murray, but Jamal Murray looking like that last series, and then McDaniels doing this series is not looking the greatest.
No,
for Jamal Murray.
No, he's just been like I think I don't know how much the injury was nagging him, but like he just never found it. Like the whole time he hit 2 shots basically, and they were big shots. Like they buried the Lakers, but he was basically a couple of shots in the playoffs, and everything else was bad. Like he just never that level he found a year ago that made them a championship team. He just didn't have.
Yeah, and so one more thing on Minnesota's defense, because the numbers look okay, but given that they're a defensive first team in every description, like they were number 1 in the league in defense. That's what they are.
Yep.
The fact that they're allowing almost a 119-ish offensive rating in the series to Dallas, that's not gonna get it done. And we gave the numbers earlier about Towns and Edwards. I don't have the combined numbers, but I'm looking at these numbers now. Like Luka's shooting 46, 41, 88 in the series. Kyrie's 52, 44. Like they've been super efficient, and
they're comfortable getting to their spots.
Do that.
Like, I mean, that's the thing is like the thing Minnesota did so well against Denver was it made Denver's best players not feel like they could get to their spots when they wanted to get to their spots. And that's not happening. And I think part of that is the lob threat of having guys that are running downhill as lob threats, because the thing about what Denver did was Denver's lob threat is always in that dunker spot. It's always Aaron Gordon on the baseline floating. And it's easier for Gobert to kind of get in between when he's not also moving vertically. Like he's carrying horizontal space in those little moments. And I think he had a better time of kind of like disrupting that. When you're also making him run downhill, I think he loses touch more often with that guy behind him. And he can't feel that space as well because he's also running downhill. He's dealing with a lot in space. And it's giving them problems. Like Gafford and Lively are getting like 5 or 6 lob finishes each night. And it's just, it's always interesting how even when it's kind of similar things that teams want to do for the end result, like how you get there and how teams get there can mess with the defense so much. And I think that's what we're seeing in this series is the matchups just not great across the board. Like Gobert is having a tough time against some stuff, but like he's holding them together. Like the non-Gobert minutes are a catastrophe because they don't have anybody. They don't have anybody that can protect the paint.
Well,
they don't have anybody that can stop the lobs there. But even when he's out there, they're having.
We don't have the time to do the Rudy discussion, but the fact that people are acting like Rudy's the problem for Minnesota is just driving me absolutely insane.
He's not top 3 right now.
It's the same thing as same thing in Utah. Same thing. You remember in Utah when he was like getting clowned about how he got played off the floor, quote unquote, when he was playing behind 4 bad defenders, and it's like no human could do what he was supposed to do. Anyway. I'm intrigued by Game 4. I have to say, for a 3-0 series, I'm intrigued by Game 4 of that series.
Well, for me, it's as much going to tell me how real this culture change in Minnesota has been. And because we're gonna find out if they can set a lot of this aside and say we've been in every game and believe it. Because it's one thing to say that; it's another thing to show it.
Right, and they have been, and
they've done it. And
I'm glad you mentioned the matchups because that's the biggest thing in these playoffs. And this is not a year where there is an obvious best team. I mean, maybe it's Boston. We just don't. They haven't played anybody. We'll talk about it for 5 minutes here at the end. Maybe it's Boston, but in the West, there wasn't an obvious best team. It's all matchups. Like I think that if Denver was playing Dallas, I would have picked Denver. I would have. I don't know if they would have beat Dallas, but that's a better matchup for them. Minnesota is like really, really well constructed to beat Denver, and that worked out. And OKC lost to Dallas. They could have won that series. That was a tight series. Like all these, they're all kind of bunched together, and that's part of things. Before I let you go, we got to talk about Boston for a second. It's that one seems over. I mean, you can argue with me if you want to, but I think that it would be an all-time. Man, can you imagine the takes if Boston blew the series?
No, but can I get one take off?
Absolutely. What else are we doing here?
Yeah, it's that right now Indiana's better without Allie.
Oh, Lord of mercy. I mean, honestly, Hawks fans are going to love it. Hawks fans are out on Holly.
I mean, and it's not a huge difference, but it's really just defensively. There is not a guy with a big flashing sign that says "attack me" over him. And Boston is the best. Maybe other than Dallas. Dallas is really good at it, but Boston is one of the best at attacking the guy that you don't like. They will find the guy and they will relentlessly go at him.
Well, in Dallas,
and it's why Jaylen Brown has gone crazy because he just keeps saying like, "Hallie, come to me, come to me, come to me," and he's just like the thing with like. I'm interested to see how next year goes for Indiana because Hawks fans know exactly how this all can go. I'm interested to see how much Hallie takes to heart what lessons should be learned and whether those lessons are received.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at.
I don't want to go
because this series is over.
No, we agree. And
maybe Indiana, it goes 5. Maybe
Indiana having the two things are true, I think, so far. I looked briefly today. I didn't do an exhaustive search. It would be hard to find a easier path to the NBA Finals than what Boston is currently in the midst of doing.
That's correct.
The same thing could be said for the path that Indiana had to the conference finals, especially as a lower seeded team, not as a number one seed, baby, but like they got the zombie Bucks and the half zombie Knicks. And
by the end, they were the zombie Knicks.
Correct.
By the time Brunson gets hurt in Game 7.
I mean, even without OG, like that was a team that was and with no. They were playing 6 guys, and when 2 of them got hurt. Anyway. People get mad at me, but yeah, it's fine. It's more interesting in some ways. I don't want to just pile on because Boston's just doing what they're supposed to do, right?
Correct.
They did play with their food again in Game 3.
They won't
almost
stop.
Lost.
They won't stop.
They can't do it.
Should be down. They should be down 2-1.
I am sympathetic.
They should be down 2-1.
Right. No. And the thing is, okay. So my eyes, watching all these games, my eyes are like ready to clown Boston, right? We've been talking about it during games, and like they are doing vintage Boston stuff. They just can't for whatever reason, put it all together. But then my numbers brain would tell you that they've been by the point difference, they've been really dominant in these playoffs without Porzingis for most of it.
Yeah.
And they're playing against teams that are not as good as them, but like they've taken care of business in the wins and losses department, which is all that matters in the end. Like it's all that matters. They've won the games. I don't know if I've learned a single thing about Boston when it comes to the finals.
No.
Like, I don't know. I still don't know. It's like
I think the biggest thing for them, the thing that gives me the most optimism is like this is the best offensive playoff performance of Drew Holiday's career by a lot.
You have been a lead pointer outer of this. That Drew has never been good on offense in the playoffs.
Horrible with shooting efficiency in the past. And Indiana was like, we're going to let him shoot. They have trapped off of him constantly.
He finally had
he
was not very good on Saturday, but he was really good at the end.
Well, sure.
In game 3.
But
no, you're right.
Games 1 and 2, he kind of won them those games. I think one of them was like 10.
No, he was their best player, I would argue.
He
in
was
first 2 games.
He was incredible. It's him and Jaylen Brown. And so the thing is,
I don't know.
You're not going to take the bait on Jaylen Brown?
No, look, Jaylen Brown is very good at scoring sometimes.
Terrific at it.
Terrific at and you're right. He's been mismatch hunting and he's played well.
He's done well.
Tatum's doing all the stuff that people hate about Tatum. Like he's really good.
He had a great game 3.
Something that I think it was I was listening to actually our mutual friends Jared Dubin and Daniel LaRue earlier today, and our guy Dubin was like basically talking, and something. This is the same point that Bontemps has made, also our friend, about how it's just okay. Jason Tatum's just like the 7th best player in the league, and that's fine. Like he's just not as good as the guys who are above him.
100%.
It's just what he is. It's what he's always going to be, I think. But what I think we already knew this before, but Boston's not beating either team in the West, provided the teams in the West are healthy, and we assume it's probably going to be Dallas, without Porzingis.
No.
I don't think. So that's the only thing for me. It's like I would like to see them. That's what unlocked them. I've never been the biggest Porzingis guy. He was awesome this year.
He was.
And Al had a vintage game. Our guy Al hit
oldest
7
player
threes
to hit
on
7 threes in a playoff game. Come on. Come on. Oh, redemption.
You got Ryan Cameron jokes online.
Oh, boss. You'll remember this. I'm old enough to be the guy that was covering the team when Al first started shooting threes. I remember our late friend Bo Cherney wrote the whole thing about how Al needed to be shooting threes.
He did. He
was on the tip early, and Al went from like taking none. I think he went from taking like 12 one year to like 140 or 100 something. Like it was a crazy jump of like 100 threes in a year. And now he takes 3 or 4 a game. And sometimes makes 7.
7 of 12, absolutely heaving him. But no, and look, that 5, even without Porzingis, that 5-man lineup really works. The problem is this is going to be crazy. They missed Luke Cornett
a lot,
considerably.
A lot. And against either of the teams. Finally went to Tillman, then they went on the run.
It worked.
When they finally went to Xavier Tillman.
And I like Xavier Tillman a lot. Offensively, he's a negative. But no, it's not a sexy take, and we should do more. It's just Boston's just done what they're supposed to do the entire time.
Yeah,
I've learned very little about Boston, but they were also the best team in the league this year. So it's like, are they the favorite in the finals?
They're gonna.
If Porzingis is there, I think probably.
Yeah.
They'll be the betting favorite, especially if it's against Dallas. They'll be the betting favorite with home court.
Yeah. I would. A lot of fun storylines. Kyrie back in Boston. Porzingis back in Dallas. Oh, a bonanza.
All of
the takes.
I mean, Luka in the finals. Oh, Tatum in the finals.
Oh, somebody's gonna be a fraud, baby.
Jaylen Brown.
That's what the NBA Finals are really all about. Who's a fraud? That's what the NBA Finals are about. Next on First Take.
That's the playoffs. Every night is fraud on whoever it is. It drives me crazy. I absolutely hate it, but it's 100% true. Rudy fraud.
Yep.
By the way, everyone except Anthony Edwards, who is immune from this conversation. He can play as badly as anyone's
Teflon
ever
Don.
played. No one
The
cares.
Teflon. It helps that Cat is next to him. It's like it's really all about perspective. That's the key. That's the key. Cat, listen, you don't have to be faster than the bear. You gotta be faster than the guy next to you. When the bear is Stephen A. Smith, all you gotta do is throw Rudy and Cat.
Well, and game 2, we were talking about it in real time. Game 2, and Towns were bad. And the entire discussion was about Rudy. And it's like, did we watch the same game? I understand Rudy opened 3 at the end, but it was just driving me absolutely crazy. I'm like, is anyone going to mention on television that Ant was like really, really bad in game 2 and no one cares? Okay, we're fine. He was 5-17 from the floor in that game. Man, Towns, I can't. I guess I'm looking at Karl Anthony Towns box scores. It's not going well for me at midnight on Memorial Day. All right, Robbie, that's probably enough. We could do 2 hours. We're not gonna. Thank you for being here. Anything to plug on the way out? I know you're doing lots of talking these days, lots of radio appearances. We're just doing hits. It's that time of year, baby.
Yeah, if people want it. I think I'm doing 92.9 on Monday. So if you're in Atlanta,
me too.
I'll be on
our guy Caleb Johnson,
radio,
the legend himself.
Just check me out over at Dime on UPROXX, writing about things and stuff, and
dimemag.com.
on Twitter, making a fool of myself. And that's about it.
Thank you, sir, for doing this impromptu late night podcast.
Pleasure.
As for everybody else, please subscribe to the show. Tell a friend about the podcast as well. Ratings, reviews, all that fun stuff. We'll see you all next time.